I'm trying to see where they got this idea for the circle. I know they pull a lot of things out of reality, and it just makes me think of some type of group. I don't know if it's the
Well,
PLOs or
let's think
you know.
when. Yeah, it was what, 1993, right?
Yeah, so I
So
would
what
think
was
of
going
like
on?
the Palestinian Liberation Army or something like that, or
Hmm.
um, what other groups were there that were organized and had a symbol? Maybe Hezbollah at the
I don't know.
time.
93, that was before I was born.
Oh yeah, that was way before your time.
we,
No,
we don't know.
Hezbollah. A lot of Middle East groups like
Uh-huh.
Hezbollah. And I mean, if you're going to talk about like these quote unquote terrorist groups,
There's also the IRA, right? The
the IRA. Yeah, exactly.
something.
Something to that extent. But I
Mhm.
think it's brilliant how the writers once again have been able to make a product that literally coincides with the headlines today. The same words are being used,
Crazy, yeah.
the same topics are being talked about.
25 years ago.
25 years ago, it's just pretty amazing. I know these themes are not going to go away when you talk about sexism and racism. They're not going to really go away, but some of the more particular ones where you talk about terrorism and you know coup attempts,
Hmm.
those kinds of things are like almost too close to home when you hear about these kinds of things, and you're like, wow, this is. Did they not know that this was about to happen? Come, to 2019, 2020.
When was the coup of the USSR? It was right around then. It was like right around
You mean
the
when
Russian coup.
when East Berlin fell, when the wall
No, the
fell?
Russian coup where the USSR dissolved.
Oh, okay. Um, the end of the czars, you mean?
Yeah, when USSR broke up, 1991. Okay, so this happened
91.
like 2 years after that. Um, but that's the beauty of science fiction. You're right, is that they can use all these metaphors for these themes that play out throughout humanity and throughout human history and what's going to continue to happen. With science fiction, we can use these themes of coups and racism and sexism and slavery and civil rights and wars and all these things because we know that it's just going to keep going. Everybody's going to recognize it. They're going to recognize it in one specific event or in a multitude of events. And so 25 years from now, people are going to be watching Deep Space Nine and they're going to be like, holy shit, that hits totally close to home. It's going to hit close to home for them too.
Yeah, and even when you talk about looking down the road with Nong's character going through PTSD, that
Hmm.
wasn't such a heavy topic at the time. It wasn't talked about. I know, they used to call it by other names during different eras.
Yeah,
You,
what did they used to call it?
they used to call it shell shock.
Shell shock, and then there was another one after that. Um,
Yeah, there was
something's
another.
well, anyway.
Yeah, there were, but these kinds of names, right?
Hmm.
But the PTSD is, a lot of people suffered after Vietnam because it was one of the wars that was so heavily protested against, and when the soldiers came back, they weren't looked at as heroes as soldiers in prior generations, right?
Hmm.
And so you would see a growth of PTSD during that time. I think the numbers would verify that that's when it began to spike because of the treatment of the returning soldiers and because the opposition to the war here in
Sure.
the country. So, then you start to see PTSD kind of really, you know, I know that it wasn't so much of a heavily talked about topic at that time, but yet they were in front of it with Aaron's character and got in front of the topic and the idea. So
Hmm.
it's really good. It's one of the things that makes DS9 so good is the writing and the storytelling. Um, there are a few things that we can point out that here and there, to be critical of, like, for example, that
And
opening
we do.
scene.
And
And we
we do
do.
happily. Yeah.
And we
There's
do.
nothing wrong. We say what's good and we say what's bad. There just happens to be way more good than bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay to be critical, and there's always room for improvement. It's
Mhm.
not a bad thing. And when I do criticize anything, any of the shows, it's not to be putting things down or anything. It's just a matter of opinion for me.
Unless it's Discovery.
Unless it's Discovery, then I really think it's facts. Then it's all factual.
So we only have a couple minutes left here, but I did want to finish up on the episode. Um, I actually usually I don't like it when shows have like a backdrop and it looks like a painting or it looks like a green screen. Unless it's our green screen, then it's okay. But I actually really liked it. Was kind of a minor thing, but when Minister Jaro and Vedic Wynn were talking at the end there, and then like out the window, you could see like the Bajoran landscape, and like this cool architecture. I actually thought it looked really cool. I was like, "Oh, that!" I kind of wanted to see more of that, and piqued my interest.
Yeah, it's interesting to me how much of Bajor has been the storyline up until now, and I can see why when Ira kind of takes the helms in season 3, he begins to really add more elements. I feel as though we're drawing out the Bajoran storyline so far pretty long.
Yeah.
Because it's played out now throughout the first season. Now we're starting out the second season, and we still have this unresolved conflict, which kind of contradicts in some ways where you think the story begins. Because I kind of think that the story begins with Cisco taking in control of the ship, but only because things have now dissipated, right? And
Hmm.
like the wars is over and it's okay, and Federation's in charge, and, but you see that it's not. He's not walking into a stable situation. You see that the Bajoran conflict is still ongoing,
Hmm.
and not only is it ongoing, but it's internal now, right? We have a group within the Bajorans trying
Yeah.
to take power. So uh, their issues haven't been resolved, and so far now we're spending a season and now going into the second trying to resolve a lot of these Bajoran issues.
Yeah, and I think it did made me go off into thought when you said Cisco didn't go into a stable situation. I'm just like, it's like he did not at all. He walked into basically enemy territory, or what used to be, into the station that only halfway works and it's not comfortable. And the Cardassians left, but as this episode shows us, the Cardassians believe it's only a temporary loss, that they will be back, and that's why they're saying the Cardassians are secretly pushing this revolution because they're trying to get rid of the Federation. They're trying to get rid of the Federation so that they can come right back in. It's this sinister thing where they're trying to just undermine everything and be all sneaky about it, and Cisco is just stuck on this outpost all by himself with these Bajorans that kind of half want him there, kind of half don't want him there. There's fighting. There's all these other races. The Cardassians are still trying to come at him, and he's closer to Cardassian space than he is to the Federation, really. So yeah, it's a
And,
very and that's why.
it's funny. Yeah, when you just laid that out, it made me think of the situation with the Kurds and the United States and
That's
Syria and
that's
Russia
what I'm
and
saying.
Turkey.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. There's so much Middle East
yeah,
metaphors or like themes in here where that's exactly what it is. It's almost like the Federation is the United States forces out in Syria, and
yeah,
then Russia is the Cardassians kind of coming in or what. I mean, make up
yeah.
your own theme,
Right,
your
and the
own
Bajorans are
players.
the Kurdish or the
Yeah.
Syrians that are getting pushed around by both sides.
And
So
now the
yeah,
United States has to decide: do we back away because they don't want us here, or do we
Right.
keep fighting? Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, and we back
Pretty
away. We're handing it to the Cardassians or the Russians in this.
Same thing. No.
So, but yeah, this great storytelling. Once again, if you can take a story from 25 years ago and literally lay it on top of a headline that's in the news today, as we just did, and make just so many parallels, then that's all you need. Something that is telling stories that are timeless. These issues are not going to go away. These challenges are not going to go away. And the decision making involved in whether to leave or go
Totally.
or back this person or back that person are the same decisions that will be made from the beginning of ruling, of power, and government and organized civilization to the end, I think.
Yep. And now we're out of time. But there's like so much more. I'm like, oh man, there's so much more to talk about.
We still got a third episode. So
yeah, especially.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, especially when you bring up lyrics from the Clash, "Should I stay or should I go now?" That's when I don't know. I know everybody was thinking that, right?
Yeah.
We're all thinking
should I go now?